when we like stop talking and we wait for this thing to go live, it always takes longer than it's supposed to. And it would probably be easier if I had the intro music and all of that stuff done and the intro slide and all of that stuff. But I mean, look here, we're like a one man productions company over here. So we do what we can when we can. But hey, rappers, producers, if send me a beat, make me a song, and we'll put it on here. But anyways, man, it's Thursday. No, it's not. It's Wednesday. But we're doing our Thursday special because of the holidays. Want to make sure we get this out. We got a lot to talk about today, man. We're going to talk a little NFC, AFC playoff picture. We got some little subtopics that go along with there, Blake Baker, Carson Wentz, maybe even the Packers, the Cardinals falling from the sky. College football, if we have any games to get played, we may just end up forfeiting the national championship and Bama wins it again because they won last year, the way that committee's doing things. But let's open up with a more serious, somber moment. We're going to remember Madden. As you all know, John Madden passed away at the age of 85 on Tuesday, which is yesterday. And it's kind of a sad day in football, for most of us, we don't even remember John Madden for why he's so great. We remember him for the football game. We remember him for being the great color commentator, but understand none of that stuff happens without him being a legendary coach, a coach with a 70% winning percentage, a coach who never had a losing season, and a coach who walked away on top and coached arguably one of the best teams, one of the best dynasties, one of the best eras in NFL football, and the Raiders. You know what I'm saying? That's John Madden. And for somebody like me, I wasn't alive for the 70s, so I couldn't watch that. But I was able to catch him he won Emmys on all four networks, calling football. I remember him on Thanksgiving. I remember the boom. I remember the game. Like Madden 95 was like the first Madden like I ever played, and I was terrible at it. And you just watched how the game grew and grew and grew. And you really felt like you were a coach on the field. I mean, I know as a kid, that's how I learned different players. That's how I learned like the fringe players and stuff right there, because you're seeing them on the game. And if you're like me, I used to do a franchise. So now I'm like putting a team together, hard salary cap. I wasn't one of those weirdos who turned the salary cap off. So you actually have to learn like decent players and stuff like that. And then you're putting like what you see on the game to what you see on TV. And because I don't play Madden as much anymore, I honestly don't think I'm at the sharp of a personnel guy as I was maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But I just want to say thank you to John Madden for your contribution to football, for your contribution to this world. I mean, because just from the smiles you put on people's faces on Sundays and Mondays, calling the games, or the fights that you've caused because of your football game, and the many friendships that you brought together by people playing Madden. Like I skipped a lot of class my freshman year playing Madden. Like I made my friends my freshman year of college playing Madden. So thank you, John Madden, for what you've done for the football community in the world, man. Hey, what's up, Parlay Pete? You got any words for Mr. Madden?
Absolutely. And as always, it's a pleasure to be here on the Big Baby and Friends Thursday football podcast, Asterisk Wednesday. Yeah, no, you kind of, took the words right out of my mouth. I think that John definitely had an impact on the game greater than we realized just because we didn't get to see him coach and stuff. But obviously, he was known for being the coach of the Raiders for about a decade, obviously won a Super Bowl, and like you said, never had a losing season, which I would imagine at the time was kind of unprecedented. I know now that we got a guy like Mike Tomlin who's never had a losing season either today. But, of course, with Madden, it's bigger than even just, he got his credibility, of course, by being the football coach that he was. But then when he became a commentator, that's how a lot of us, at least for the most part, anyone that's what would you call us? Millennials, I guess, that era of people, we know him probably. If you were a football fan, I mean, of course, the video game, I think that's how a majority of people know him, especially Gen Z and anyone. Everybody knows him because of the football game. But certainly, the first time I was really introduced to him, I would say, I mean, yeah, I had the early man games too, like just as a kid, but like I remember him calling games too, like, and so
He went from, you remember when he went from Pat Summerall to Al?
Yeah. Why do you hate Al so much?
I just
I love him and Al. Him and Al were really good. But yeah, I remember when he was with Pat Summerall, and it's funny too. I watched a clip the other day because I remember this game so vividly. It was a Monday Night Football game back when Monday Night Football was on ABC, and it was the day after Brett Favre's dad had died, and they played against the Raiders, ironically, at the Black Hole, and Brett Favre threw for like 320 yards in the first half and 4 touchdowns. And it's crazy because I remember, like, I can vividly remember that stuff. I remember John Madden's last game. He called the Super Bowl with Al against it was the Cardinals and the Steelers Super Bowl. That was the last game he called. But certainly he's, in terms of importance in terms of contributions to the game of football, he's probably on the Mount Rushmore, I would imagine, just because of how popular the video game was, but B, because he was a successful coach and obviously just an all-time great commentator, he'll sorely be missed. And it's kind of crazy. I don't know, did they come out and say what happened? Because they said it was sudden, and I think it's ironic too that this happened, or it's a coincidence at least. Like, it happened as soon as they're dropping the bio kind of on him.
Yeah, no, I've not seen anything that came out. But I used to live in Monterey, and he lived in the Monterey area, specifically Carmel by the Sea, which was about 10 minutes from where I lived at. Spent a lot of time going to the beach over there, just walking around. And apparently Madden used to walk around the neighborhood every day on his daily walk. So he was still being out and active and stuff into his later years. So it's sad, man. It's unfortunate, but I wish I had a lighter in here. So I might put a lighter up, but I'm definitely not about to pour no Lobos out for anybody. Can't do that, John. We'll
take a drink for you, John.
All right, man, let's get into these topics. And I forgot to put this in the rundown, but I just added it because talking about Al reminded me of Chris, who's the one that really bothers me. And
I have to say, that's why I'm like, come on, man. I know that Al might be getting a little old, but Al is still a legendary commentator himself. I mean, think about it. Al Michaels called the Miracle on Ice. Like, when you think about historic shit like that, it's like the fact that he was fucking calling the Olympics in, what was that, 1980? 1976?
80-something.
I think it was 1980. Literally, that was the year of the Olympics. And he called, do you believe in miracles? Like, that's his line,
My beef isn't with Al. It's with Chris.
All right. And that's okay. It's okay to be mad at Chris, because Chris is always like Patrick Mahomes, he's a guy that can throw the football. He could do this, that, and the other, left-handed. He's kind of like Steph Curry with the football,
Like, yeah, I got it, Chris. So I didn't even know if I was going to make this a topic. But you see the two defensive linemen from the Washington football team get into their little kerfuffle, their little spat, right?
Former Alabama players, both of them.
Yeah, Saban's boys. One puts his finger in the face of the other. Then obviously he swings on him. Doesn't
haymaker?
Huh?
Haymaker.
Haymaker doesn't fully connect, but gave him the whole, hey, bro, not that kind of party. You're not gonna embarrass me like that on national TV.
Well, get your hand out of my face.
Yeah, and so before we get into that though, let me tell you what pissed me off about watching it live. Was Chris Collinsworth going, Al, that right there is embarrassing right there. That is extremely embarrassing. That's happening on the NFL sideline. Then you hear a bunch of other NFL players come out and say, Shannon Sharps of the world, the one I can remember, there's a lot of stuff that happens on NFL sidelines that y'all used to didn't see. Now there's just so many cameras that you're gonna see it. And there's so much stuff that happens behind the scenes in the locker room in practice that y'all will never see. But players fight, and I mean, we see it all the time in training camp. But players fight coaches get into it. It's a bunch of alpha males, a bunch of testosterone around each other. And Nick Wright had a great point. He was said, "In no workplace is that ever acceptable. Like if you ever poke somebody in the side of the head like that in any workplace, you should expect for them to still off on you."
No, those are big facts. But just like Shannon kind of said too, I mean, that stuff happens. Like, I mean, I can't, go but too far back. But even in high school, I mean, that shit was happening in high school. Now, I don't know about anyone putting their hand in somebody's face and actually, like, poking them, basically. But even I can remember that I've had heated practices before where, we would get into a fight. Like it would be kind of like a fight, and then coach would have everybody get off and we'd be running suicides or whatever. But like, so that, to me, that shit does happen. And the fact that there are so many cameras, it's going to be hard to not, see it now, like, right. Especially for pros. But you would think, I mean, it's frustrating to lose, and they knew they had no chance this season. And I don't know, but they didn't. And that's why they got their ass kicked by the Cowboys. And that's why when we were talking with Major Parlay, obviously him being a DC native, and he's talking about how bad the Falcons got beat by the Cowboys. And it's just like, well, damn, you guys got whooped even worse. You gave up more points. And this is a rivalry game. Matter of fact, this is arguably y'all's biggest rival. And you're getting beat like this on national TV. So, tempers flare. Guys get pissed. But guess what? Nobody's going to be pissed enough unless that direct deposit doesn't hit. And I promise you that the direct deposit hit. And so that's really what matters.
Yeah, it is a business. And like we said, you're a man first, and certain things just aren't acceptable. But I think the true fight in Washington before, obviously the fight with the owner, that's the one who should get beat up. But the true fight should be with the personnel staff for thinking that bringing back Taylor Heineke and bringing in Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to get them a division title.
Well, as if they didn't mediocre their way into one last year because of how bad the division was, and then the state of the NFL with COVID and stuff, like as if that wasn't part of the reason why they made the playoffs to begin with.
Right, but let's not dwell on this terrible team anymore because they're bad.
Yeah, it's a bad football team. They should be called the bad football team. Not the Washington football team.
You know what? We should pitch that. What's his name? Snyder?
Yeah, he might. Shit, half the nation would agree.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to the NFC playoff picture.
Falcons in.
I think this year's playoffs are very interesting. The NFC looks a bit more settled than the AFC, right? We got the freaking Packers, our number 1 seed at 12-3.
No surprise.
No, we got Dallas sitting pretty at 11-4. Rams sitting pretty at 11-4. The Bucks sitting pretty. They're hurting at 11-4, if we're being honest. Then we have the Cards sitting at 5-hole at 10-5, and they've clinched. Then we've got the fun, right? We've got the Eagles sitting at 8-7. We got the Niners sitting at 8-7. We've got the Falcons at 7-8. The Vikings at 7-8.
And the Saints at 7-8.
They don't count. They don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, they're finished too. They're finished. And
so with this NFC East, right? Or excuse me, the NFC playoffs. For one, our Falcons lost tiebreakers to the Eagles and the freaking 49ers. So how do you see the last 2 seeds shaking out? I mean, obviously the top 5 are in.
I think
how do you see it shaking out?
If I'm keeping it 100 and not having a biasness and hoping that a miracle happens, the reality of it is it'll probably stand pat, and the 49ers and the Eagles will both be the last 2 seeds. it's unfortunate that the Falcons couldn't win one of those games. It really is, because isn't it crazy? Or even if they had just beaten Washington.
That's the one. The Washington and the Carolina at home. Those are the two.
Yeah, they're just two games. It's just like, my goodness. But you know what? That was to be expected with the type of roster that the Falcons had this year. They've overachieved already. They could lose the next two games, and I still think that they've overachieved. But you're sitting in a position at where, I'm looking at this. 49ers get Houston next week. Houston already got their big upset win last week. Now, that doesn't mean that that they're going to just lay down to the 49ers. The 49ers are cooking, and actually they're coming off a loss that they maybe should have won because they were up. But you got Trey Lance starting there, and we don't know what the week.
Not confirmed.
Jimmy G's not playing. And if he is, look, we'll see. Davis Mills has been cooking with grease. So, look. But the Eagles get the bad football team, so that should be a win. And then they get Dallas the very next week, which I think Dallas will still be fighting for. Certainly, everybody wants to act like if you don't get that bye, it doesn't matter. But no, you want to get the 2 seed because you don't want to be the 4 seed and then potentially have to go to the frozen tundra in Lambeau Field and play in the second round. I wouldn't want to, because the thought is that Green Bay is going to beat Minnesota. Especially, Thielen's out for the season. Not that he's a huge piece, but he kind of is. Not
what he used to be.
Yeah, he makes that offense hum a little bit better. And Green Bay already lost to Minnesota this year, so
yeah,
I kind of count Minnesota out at this point.
It's a primetime game,
and once you count Minnesota out, the Saints to me are not in it because. Think about it. The Falcons have a tiebreaker over them, and they still have to play them again. And I believe that the Falcons will beat them, especially with their quarterback situation. So at this point, you start saying it's really the 49ers, Eagles, and Falcons. And the fact that both of those teams have tiebreakers over the Falcons puts the Falcons in such a bad position. And, I wasn't too surprised that we lost to San Francisco. I think we were both shocked at how that Eagles game went in week 1. And It just sucks that was who we played when we played them at that point in the season, because I don't know. Who knows? That I think that the results could have been a little bit different if we played. Let's say we played Detroit week 1, and then this past Sunday we played the Eagles. I think the game would have been a little different.
Different, yes. I don't know if we win it though.
Maybe not. We might not win, but I doubt we get blown out the way we did. We're not a good football team. I know that. So. But at this point, I would say that it plays out. Everything stands pat, and you get San Francisco in at the 6, and then the Eagles in at the 7. And funny enough, the Falcons will somehow, some way, end up being the 8th and miss out. And obviously, we have to win out, and the Eagles have to at least lose. They have to lose to Washington, basically.
Yeah, so.
Because I think Dallas will beat the Eagles again.
Absolutely. And looking at these two teams, Philly and the 49ers, I think they're two interesting teams because they run the ball really well. And as we saw on Christmas Day, Green Bay, as good as they are, man, they did a terrible job stopping the run. Now, granted, Nick Chubb is not on either one of those teams, but the 3-headed monster of Jalen Hurts, Boston Scott, and Miles Sanders is something that's scary. Green Bay is 2 COVID players away from holy shit, what do we do? Granted, I expect Green Bay to get that bye, but I came on here a couple weeks ago, and I think Philly or the 49ers, one of those teams will win their first-round playoff game. Just imagine if you have a rematch of what the NFC, if you have the Rams at the 4. Let me pull up the actual standings.
No, so right now, this is who the matchup would be. If it started today, the Cowboys would play the Eagles, and I think that they would be. I think they're better than the Eagles, and I know that there's that choke Cowboys.
Third time.
But that defense is playing as good as it's played all year. And the offense, based on just their last game, is humming back again, right? To me, the Cowboys, and I get it, it's the Dallas Cowboys. They're just a team. I've already said it. I think I said it in the group chat. I like the Cowboys this year. I really do. I think that they're kind of set up to do it. And of course, there is the thought that, Aaron finally, he already has the monkey off his back because he's won a Super Bowl, but he kind of gets that monkey off his back this year because it seems like outside of that 1 year run that he had, I mean, think about it. He typically gets blown out in the NFC Championship game. A lot of those games, some of those games they were losing it, or if they didn't get blown out, then they lost at home to, the Giants. I know 1 year when they went 15-1. That was the year after they won the Super Bowl. The Giants beat them at Lambeau. Obviously, the Falcons blew them out. They blew a lead against the Seahawks.
And he lost 2 to the 49ers.
Yeah, he got blown out by the 49ers.
He won to the 49ers. He got smoked by the 49ers.
And then the Bucs just fucking ramshacked him last year. And so,
terrible pass interference call, by the way.
It was. But it just kind of sets up to where when we look at the NFC playoff picture, at least, I think that Tampa's going to come back down there just because of all the injuries. I think that it's going to be really hard for them to make a run.
Let's see. We got Tampa and we got Tampa and
they're 4. They're playing Arizona and that could be an upset for what it's really worth. But I expect them to beat the Cardinals.
Yeah, I do too. We'll get to the Cardinals in a second. Let's keep this ball going. So let me see. So if I got San Fran or Philly upsetting somebody, we're saying San Fran upsets the Rams.
Yes, that's much more likely.
Well, yeah, because
they've beaten them 5 or 6 times in a row.
I mean, yeah, Shanahan owns McVay, and what happens in the NFL world if Wonder Boy McVay gets put out in the first round by Kyle Shanahan and the I guess we could say underachieving 49ers or slow start 49ers. What? Let's just you're a Bill Simmons guy, right? The sliding doors moments, right? So what happens if the 49ers go to New York Giants, a Packers from 2010-esque run, right? Where they get hot. And for one, what does that say about the Rams? Because they go through the Rams, they beat McVay again. It didn't matter if you had Matt Stafford or Jared Goff. You could have kept your draft picks. Even though I would still take Matt Stafford over Jared Goff and draft picks any day of the week. I watched his backups the other day and they were terrible. Bad point. But and then what does that say for Jimmy Garoppolo? I think if the 49ers go on a run, this gets interesting. This turns into like Jordan Love 2.0, but your prospect shows more upside than the guy sitting in the seat.
Well, I'd say more ironically like the 49ers when they benched Alex Smith for Colin Kaepernick, more so. I'd say it even really reminds me a little bit more of that if that's the route that they decided to go. But
hold on, let me throw one more thing at you. Or does Garoppolo pull the Brady move for the ultimate karma and say, get this guy out of here?
Well, it won't work for him. I mean, Brady was Brady and Jimmy G's Jimmy G. So yeah. That's almost a rhetorical question that you just asked me.
That's the first take topic right there.
It is. That's a perfect first take topic because then Molly will come in and say, he's like, well, what do you do if Jimmy G doesn't want him there anymore? It's just like.
and then Ju sends us the clip from Instagram and
then says, I don't know why they would get rid of Jimmy G. You acting like they didn't go to the Super Bowl with him.
Same reason why y'all should have got rid of Big Ben after going 11-5 last year. He's not good.
I mean, yeah, and so no, that's not going to be an issue. I do think that out of the two teams, for sure, it's as much easier to say that the 49ers would have the better chance of the upset just because they kind of do own the Rams, and then they're a better road team than they are home team. Everybody forgets that the 49ers are pretty bad at home, and they have been the last 2 years. Philly, I just don't think. I think Dallas is just way more talented, and that Dallas, it just seems like one of those years for Dallas to where certainly even if they lose in the playoffs, it won't be in the first round. I don't see it. Like, I just don't see it. So if there's more likely of an upset of those first three matchups in general, I would say that definitely the 49ers beating the Rams seems the most realistic, just because I don't see Brady bowing out in the first round either, even with the injuries, especially to a free-falling Cardinals team. But, you know,
you say that, and that takes us into a topic, man. The Cardinals are falling from the sky. 3 losses in a row,
including one to the Lions, a blowout loss to the Lions.
Kyler is hurt again. This is 2 years in a row that they start off hot, obviously hotter this year than last year, and Kyler's hurt again. Cliff Kingsbury is going to be due for a contract because next year will be a lame duck year for him.
He'll get a college job.
Huh?
He'll get a college. I know him and Herb will be at the top of everybody's wish list next year. Because Herb's going to go back to TV.
Golly, Fox is going to bring him back too, but they'll hire. Let me stop. I like Fox Sports. But don't get me started on him. But yeah, so Cliff is fighting for his job. And apparently, I think Albert Breer reported this, that Cliff had a mandate to win this year because ownership was not happy with last year. They didn't say, hey, got it, building on with second-year coach, second-year player. They're like, no, man, we were in playoff contention and we blew it down the stretch. Now, I think the narratives around the Cardinals are very interesting because Cliff's getting most of the blame, but we can say that the NFL media likes Cliff a little bit more than they like Urban because he's a college guy, and they're just looking to point their fingers at him. But Kyler's hurt. Nuke Hopkins is hurt. J.J. Watt has been hurt. So do you think the Cardinals are going to fall from the sky and hit the ground, or they're going to bounce back up and actually obviously they're in the playoffs, but be competitive and make a run?
Not if they play Tampa, which that's who it looks like they're going to play. So, no. If it's Tampa, no. Like, if it's Dallas, no. The Rams seem to be the most susceptible team for anyone to play to lose. And that's because the Rams have fair weather fans. The game's in L.A.
Matt will throw a pick or 4.
Let's talk about that too. Matt Stafford's never won a playoff game. There's a lot of stuff that kind of works against the Rams to where, they could be the team that's susceptible to lose to any of those wild card teams. But I don't see it for the Cardinals though.
What about the division? They got the Cowboys this week.
Who?
Game of the week. We got Joe Buck and
the Cardinals have the Cowboys.
Yeah, we got Cards, Cowboys. Then next week they got the Cards. The Seahawks.
Well, they should beat Seattle. Seattle's done. And so you look at it that way, I expect the Cowboys to pretty much win out the rest of the way, because all they need is Green Bay. All they need is for Green Bay to sneeze, And
the Rams could go 0-2, man. They got Baltimore with Lamar practicing this week and the 49ers. I don't say they will go 0-2, but they could go 0-2. The Cards could win the division and pop into that 3 seed. Then get boat raced by Shanahan. Shanahan's winning first round.
The Cards aren't, though. And that's who we're talking about, the Cards. The Cards
right.
aren't there. I just don't see a scenario. Like I said, the Rams would be the only team possibly that they would play that I'm like, yeah, they could. They could, but no Nuke. They got JJ earlier in the season, of course, injured. Like we said, Kyler, injured. Cliff's never coached. What's the biggest game Cliff Kingsbury's ever coached in? Probably the last game of the season last year.
I was gonna say some bowl game that I don't feel like looking up.
Oh, well, I wouldn't even know. I don't know if he's ever coached in a bowl game because Texas Tech always won 5-7. So it's just one of those situations where they're a young, unproven team that got off to such a hot start, and now they're coming back down. They're kind of what Pittsburgh was last year. Pittsburgh started 11-0, and everybody knew that they were fraudulent, just like we kind of all knew when the Cardinals, even though they were beating teams with Colt McCoy at quarterback, it was just kind of like, man, this team is not for real. And there was nothing that anyone could convince us that they're for real. They're not, this powerhouse or one of these teams that we've got a history of, we know that they're good or anything like that. It's never been like that. And so, I just don't see the Cardinals getting it done at any point in the playoffs. I would love for them to prove me wrong, but, they don't get a vote of confidence from me.
All right. So while we're on here, and we're going to transition to, we're going to hit one more NFC topic, then get to the AFC. And this may be first takey. I'm going to stop calling things hot takes and call them first takes. I wouldn't want to start my franchise around Kyler Murray. I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have drafted him first overall in that class because you're kind of stuck there and you don't want to get fired after, missing on Josh Rosen and Steve Wilkes. But if you give me there are Derek Carr type quarterbacks that I think I'd rather start my franchise around than a Kyler Murray, and not because of his ceiling, but because of his injuries. It's almost like the Jimmy G thing where they had to draft a quarterback this year, and again, Kyler is much better than Jimmy G, absolutely better than Jimmy G, but he gets hurt so much and it derails the season so much that I'm like, I mean, you're great when you're here, but you're not here enough, and you're going to miss time. And even when you're here working part-time, if you don't got Kyler at 100%, man, you got an average quarterback.
Well, and think about it. They went 2-0 with Colt McCoy in the 2 games that he did miss. They won those games. And, Colt McCoy is not a starting quarterback, but he's certainly better than what they had at backup last year. Because remember, it was a win and end situation, which I was going to say that was Cliff Kingsbury's biggest game of his career.
I haven't found a bowl game yet on his Wikipedia.
Yeah, because like I said, I don't think that he had any winning seasons at Texas Tech. And that's not to shame him, because clearly he showed he could develop players. And maybe that was why Arizona was like, we like you because, well, you've got this history of quarterbacks and stuff and high scoring points.
I got you. 2013, 8-5, he won the Holiday Bowl. 2015, 7-6, he lost the Texas Bowl. 2017, 6-7, lost the Birmingham Bowl. Best finish in the Big 12 was 6th. Tied for 5th.
Yeah, we're supposed to believe that he's going to win some big games. I mean,
he's a coordinator. Can we just be honest? Cliff Kingsbury is a high-end coordinator. Yes, he's winning right now. He's doing a great job. But Cliff Kingsbury can develop quarterbacks. He can scheme it up, but he doesn't control the full game. He's a coordinator, and there's nothing wrong with being a great coordinator. My man in New England has made a lifelong earning off of being a great coordinator. Josh McDaniels. And he's going to get another head coaching job, and he'll probably, turn into what he was when he was a head coach. Eric Mangini, great coordinator. Rex Ryan, even though he had some success, great coordinator.
Dan Quinn,
clearly,
great
coordinator. Todd Bowles, he won 10 games with the Jets, but guess what? He's more of a great coordinator. What I think Kellen Moore is going to end up being, a great coordinator. I don't think he's a head coach. It's okay to be a great coordinator.
Not everybody can be a head coach. I mean, think about it. There's 32 of those in the NFL.
And it's more than
just like everybody talks about how hard it is to make these leagues, to be a coach in it is even more sacred because there's less positions than that. And so it takes a special kind of guy, and some guys have to get put in the ringer. Look, Bill Belichick, if after his Cleveland Browns stint, the league gave up on him, we would have never had the New England dynasty. So some guys do have to have that first trial and error fail. And I know that in the 90s that the Browns weren't terrible. They weren't god awful, but they didn't have the reputation that they had once they came back after the Ravens became the Browns. And so some guys need, a second chance as a coach, because, somebody could have said that about Bill, right? They could have said, Bill is just a great coordinator. He was under Parcells. He was a good defensive guy. He had Lawrence Taylor. Yeah, they were winning Super Bowls or whatever. But Bill, if he didn't get that second chance, we would have never known that he's the GOAT, right? He's the greatest coach of all time. But, a guy like Cliff, though, Cliff being the example that we're talking about here, Cliff is a college coach that kind of just showed in college, well, we can put up points. Even if we don't win football games, we're going to put up points. We're going to put up points, and you're going to see that the quarterbacks that the eye that I have for talent, I know who can throw the football, and not only that, I'm going to get the most out of that guy. And so, like a lot of people had Kyler Murray because of how hot the Cardinals had started. They had Kyler Murray sitting in that MVP conversation. I never had him in mind.
Me neither. He sat there way too long for me.
Yeah. And so it just, a guy like him for sure. Yeah, I think just he does have coordinator just written all over him. He's just a coordinator.
Okay, so while we're here talking about the NFC, do you have any concerns on the Green Bay Packers and their defensive woes and the fact that they can't stop the run? They, picked Baker off 4 times, and the game still came down to the last drive. Jair Alexander's not back. Zadarius Smith isn't back, and Bakhtiari's not back yet.
Well, I think that certainly them getting a W against the Vikings will go a long way this week, because as long as they get that taken care of, you're pretty much a shoe-in, for that bye week, which gives you an additional week to get guys healthy, but it also opens you up for the COVID, right? Depending on how everybody's organization handles that, are they going to do what Nick Saban's probably doing with the Alabama players now? If you notice, you only heard about something out of Georgia. I don't know if you've heard anything about Cincinnati or even Michigan for that matter. Georgia's like the only one. But, basically keeping their players locked down to where that doesn't become at least the issue. And I know that those guys are just injured. But Bakhtiari already missed a few games earlier this year, right?
Bakhtiari hasn't played since last year.
Wait, he's still out? No.
Yeah, left tackle.
He hasn't played any games this year.
No.
Is he out for the season? Hold on. I thought he played some games. He didn't?
No, we haven't seen Bakhtiari all year.
Well, even more of a reason, though. That means that they've been fine without him. So he's probably the least of their concerns. Now, it's going to be the defense that's going to have to step up for this team, because we know that Aaron Rodgers was going to work his magic. He's going to work his magic. As long as he's got his weapons on the field, they're going to be fine, I think, offensively. I don't think that that's going to be an issue. And the fact that they're so deep at, running back, obviously, because you got Aaron Jones, but then you got A.J. Dillon who can handle that load. He can, but he can handle it. And so now Devontae Smith could be a different story. You miss a guy like that, and, you only got Alan Lazard and Montez Valdez-Scantling.
I mean, who do they beat with them?
They beat Arizona.
Was Arizona?
It was Arizona.
Arizona. We don't take them seriously.
Yeah, and so, it'll be tough. It'll be tough sledding for them, but I think that defensively, that's going to be kind of their concern. I mean, but the defense has played well as of late. I mean, I know they kind of gave up a bunch of points to no-name, Huntley with the Ravens, but outside of that, the defense has actually held its own. Even in that Jordan Love game on the road at Kansas City, they held Kansas City to 13 points. I mean, so the defense has played well.
All right, man, let's get to the more difficult conference, the AFC. Now, I have NFC bias anyways because I'm just an NFC guy. I'm a Falcons fan. You know, we're NFC people around here.
Right. We like watching Fox, not CBS.
I mean, the quality. I think we've talkked about it on here. The quality
there's definitely a different quality. And then the commentating. And look, I like Tony, right? I like Tony. I like Brad.
That's only one game, man.
Or Jim Nantz, actually. I was saying Brad Nessler. But Brad Nessler does CBS too with
college.
Yeah, with college.
But with Fox, man, you can get Gus and Akib, you get, you know, Trent and Joe, you get Greg Olson, who's really coming along. Fox got some. What's my man's name?
Yeah, Adam Schlereth.
Yeah, Schlereth. I like Schlereth.
Yeah.
We got some superstars out here at Fox. I mean, I'm not a big Moose Johnson.
You got Daryl. Yeah, Moose. I was about to say you got Moose.
I can do without him.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you know.
But look, here we go in the playoffs right now. We got Kansas City sitting in the 1 seed. Despite their slow start, they've picked it up. And I guess I'm supposed to be a believer, but I can't get that stench of the early season like out of my brain yet, out of my nose yet. And they're probably going to make a fool out of me. But I think it's going to be the lack of competition going through the playoffs and not how great they are. Because going to 3 straight Super Bowls, that's nuts. You know what I mean? That's Jim Kelly type stuff, and they didn't win. Then you got Tennessee sitting in the 2-hole, waiting on Derrick Henry to come back. They had that big win versus the 49ers last week. Shocked the hell out of me, to be honest with you. Cincinnati in the 3-hole, but that division is crazy. We got the Buffalo Bills sitting in that.
Not to cut you off, but they've all but locked up that division because the only team that really has a chance is Baltimore, and they beat them twice. So
yeah,
they have a 2-game, even though it's a 1-game lead, they really have a 2-game lead. They just got to win one more game.
We got Buffalo sitting at 4 at 9-6. We got the Colts at 5 at 9-6. The Pats at 6 at 9-6, and this is outdated because at 7 we should have the Dolphins at
8-7.
So man,
Dolphins at 8-7. Then you got Chargers at 8-7 in the 8-hole, Raiders at 8-7 in the 9-hole, Ravens at 8-7 in the 10-hole.
And then the Browns. The Browns lurking at 7 and 8.
Yeah, and then they got the Steelers at 11 at 7 and 7 and 1, Browns 7 and 8, 12, 13, Broncos 7 and 8. But those two, all 3 of those teams are irrelevant. None of them are making the playoffs. None of them. They're not making the playoffs. So even though it's a de facto elimination game with the Steelers and Browns this week, irrelevant football game in my opinion.
No, it's very relevant because if Mike Tomlin wins, it's
he at least guarantees himself a non-losing season.
Yeah.
Which would prove me wrong to a degree. Because I think I called at the beginning of the season. I said
you called Mike and Pete.
Yep, I said the Seahawks and the Steelers. I said neither of them would have a winning season this year.
I'm gonna go back and re-listen to our opening podcast and our predictions, and probably
cut it up and throw it on so we can hear ourselves talk about it.
Yeah, I'll cut some of it up so then we can respond to some of our takes based on like what's actually happening, what actually happened. That just depends on how much free time I have. But anyways, so the AFC, man, it's weird here, man. I don't have feelings on it because you watch the Chargers beat the Chiefs one week, and then you see them get boat raced by the Texans and David Culley.
Right.
David Culley earned himself another year, by the way. I don't think he gets it, but he's earned it.
I think that it's going to depend on, in a weird way, because I think that they might.
We're not about to talk Texans. We're not going to talk Texans all season.
Here, we don't have to talk Texans all season, man. But
I know you want to, but let's go with the AFC East, man. It's nip and tuck here. Super tight. The Bills got their redemption on the Patriots. With 2 games left, they got the freaking Jets and the Falcons. Oh, man. Well, we see who the division's going to. The Pats and the Dolphins, they play the 9th. That's going to decide the damn wild card spot, I believe, for them. Jags and Pats, not watching that game.
Bad game.
I mean, bad game. And the Dolphins have, who do they have left on their schedule?
Titans.
And Dolphins could go over.
Well, and that's the point. And that's why, we had to look at this playoff picture, how I see it shaping out. Chiefs, of course, they're in. They've already clinched their division, so they're in. Titans, they can lose to the Dolphins. I mean, but the thing with the Titans, what they've got to worry about is if the Colts can somehow beat the Raiders, they got to worry about the division at that point. And so that would be their biggest thing. For the Bengals playing the Chiefs this week, this is going to show us, this is going to be a measuring stick, as far as I'm concerned, for how good this young Bengals team is. Everybody kind of questioned the Zach Taylor hire after last year. And I know that Joe got hurt halfway through the season. He was a rookie anyways. But they've definitely made strides because they signed enough veteran players on the defense to where the defense has been middle of the pack. But then offensively, they've been explosive. They probably have the most explosive offense in the NFL this season, I would say. Thanks in part to Jamar Chase being a home run hitter, but just having a really good receiving core with T. Higgins and Boyd.
And you already said Jamar Chase. But, yeah, I mean, look at them, man. They got 4,000-yard passer, 2,000-yard receivers, and 1,000-yard rusher, all under the age of 25.
Yeah, they got a really good young team. They just play in Cincinnati. And so
you heard what Joe said last week.
Yeah, well, hey, and we saw how they responded to that, right? And so, so that'll be a measuring stick game. Then you got the Bills, who, I mean, I'd like to think they're probably going to win the division after getting New England.
They lost to Jacksonville with Herb at the helm.
They got it, and they play the Falcons this week in a game that, of course, I hope to see the Falcons get the upset because I just want Week 18 to be interesting for us. But I couldn't ask for more for the Falcons to still be in the playoff conversation into January. I mean, I don't think that we could have asked for more this season, but probably a game that they're going to win. And so you get a game for the Bills where they pretty much, even though it's going to go into the last week with them and the Patriots for the division. But both of those teams will be playoff teams. Like I said, this Colts game is going to be very important, I think, for the AFC playoff picture because, of course, if the Raiders win, they hop into the wild card because they'll have a tiebreaker against the Colts. And, of course, like we said, too, with the Dolphins playing the Titans, it kind of sets up really nicely against the Raiders. But at that point, if I had to call it how I see it, even with Lamar back, I'm gonna be honest. I think the Rams are gonna beat them. I think the Ravens aren't going to the playoffs this year. I think the winner of the Raiders-Colts game is a playoff team, and I think the Dolphins don't get in, and that the Chargers are going to end up being the last seed.
You're not going to get any arguments out of me there. The Ravens are having their season from hell. Bill Simmons called it at the beginning of the year. I didn't want to believe it because, I didn't think it would get worse. And it got exponentially worse. I mean, losing Lamar for multiple games, eventually losing Humphrey.
Everybody was pumped up about, even you lost J.K. Dobbins, right? But then it was like, well, the Gus train. Because everybody liked Gus Edwards anyways, it seemed like. Because even when Dobbins wasn't – him and Mark Ingram last year weren't really toting it. It's like, damn, this guy Gus is moving the fucking rock, And so then he gets hurt. He tears his ACL or whatever. Then Peters, ACL. All this in like the same practice. And you're picking off the scrap heap. You brought a little bit of life out of Devontae Freeman to where he's been, I'd say, mildly productive. He wasn't Falcons. He wasn't first 2 years starter Falcon Devontae Freeman, but he's been relatively productive, I guess.
He's looked better at times than he looked his last year with us.
For sure. No, for sure. It seemed like there was a little bit of tread on the tires. And I mean, kudos to him for surprising me on that front. Because once I saw they signed him and Le'Veon Bell, I'm just like, man, their season's over. Like, And granted, you knew Lamar was going to be getting 10 to 15 carries a game himself, but
Let's speak to John though. John's a good fucking coach, man.
Yeah, but think about it. He's given 2 games away to where who knows? They at least if they kick the extra point, they probably win one of those games in overtime.
Yeah, they probably beat Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh's offense is impotent.
Yeah, and I understood not wanting to give Aaron Rodgers a chance to get the ball back. Like I get it, but
I wasn't mad at that one because that's the same way he beat. That's the same way he beat Kansas City though. He went for it.
Yeah, and I guess the only issue I had with it is that he had already done it once and they didn't get it, and so it's just like deja vu,
Yeah. So we're talking about the AFC North, man, and I usually try to come up with better, more PG topics, but man, Baker blows. I can't think of a.
What does he blow?
Huh?
What does he blow? Since this isn't a PG topic.
Well, he blows games.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he blows meat because that's damn near what I see out there. I see him just sucking dick on the field, literally.
You know what? You are who his wife has been talking about. I don't know if you know. His wife.
No. She was talking about Browns fan. I'm not a Browns fan. There's a big difference. I'm a Falcons fan.
And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm old school. Maybe I'm misogynistic. But back when Aisha Curry came out and said the league was fixed, I said, "Hey, Steph, control your woman." You never hear Savannah saying anything. Now I'm going to come out and say, "Hey, Baker, tell your wife to chill." Like, does she still want that progressive money? Because for one,
it ain't gonna be Browns money no more.
Yeah, the Browns money is going to dry up. I mean, he might be stuck to being a Heisman House money guy and a podcast guy. I mean, Baker.
Somebody will sign him. Like,
as a backup. Hey, listen. I was listening to Skip and Shannon, and I rarely listen to them because it's usually terrible content. Shannon's great, but Skip just drives me up a freaking wall. And
that's why him and Stephen A were made to be together.
I know because they both are terrible.
But at least it's it used to be so entertaining just to see them like talk about nothing, but like they literally are arguing their point so hard. Like,
right. And then you have like Shannon and even Max when he was on there. They, like a lot of times they like have point, like especially Shannon. He had like a point that's like that makes sense, and he like evolved his thinking over time.
Yeah, because he actually played in sports.
And I didn't know this until I was listening to yesterday's show. When he worked at CBS, he was a MVP voter. So like the football community actually respects his opinion on football. But anyways,
one of the best tight ends of all time.
I mean, yeah, he besides Gronk, he's the only one that wins.
Yeah, Tony. Who knows? Maybe Kyle become a winner too.
Man, we hope so. But Baker, tell your wife to chill out though, because you're not playing well, and whatever she says doesn't help things out. But Baker's not good. He has only 2 300-yard games. One was week 1, and the other was against the Chargers, who give up yards for fun. And where do the Browns go from this? Oh yeah, now I remember what I was gonna say. Skip and Shannon were talking about Baker, and I don't know if you remember on Hard Knocks when Hugh brought him in and told him he was gonna be the backup. Like
I do remember that, yeah.
Shannon was like, "See, you knew something that the rest of us didn't know, that Baker was just a backup."
Well, and to be fair, Baker, like I said, I was there. What seemed to be in a weird way one of the first games where a lot of people were like, "Yeah, he's pretty good. Like he's going to be good." I was there when the Falcons played the Browns. Best seats I've ever had. At a Falcons road game. I was literally on the front row at the 50-yard line. $150 ticket. Couldn't believe it. But my point in saying that is that I remember he torched the Falcons that day. Like, I remember this shit. And we were up at halftime, but he still threw for like 360 yards and like 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. And I think he ran for like 50. And so, like, yeah, it was one of those things where it was like, okay, maybe this Oklahoma cocky
some big
Heisman winning quarterback, like maybe that really is him, maybe he really can be that. And then, he does that. And then he follows up the next year. They make the playoffs. And then the following year is this year, right? This is year 3. And
Yeah.
and he's not that, what's that TikTok or whatever it is. He's like, I'm not that guy, pal. He's like, oh no, he's like, you're not that guy, pal. He's like, you're not that guy. He's not that guy. And that's just the real truth of it. He's not that guy. Like, I don't think that Baker is in a position at where he's a franchise quarterback. And maybe it could be a change of scenery he needs. I don't know. But I think that his time is done in Cleveland. And I wouldn't be surprised if somebody gave him a 1 year, $25 million.
What's that
next
league?
year. I wouldn't be surprised.
The USFL, I think that's a change of scenery that he needs to be a starter.
Come on, man. That's not Kyle Kuzma. I know everybody was talking about how Kuz was going to be playing in China.
No, if you want to see Baker start and win games of significance, I think he has to go to the USFL.
I think somebody had called him Johnny Manziel, but Johnny Manziel, but doesn't party as much or something like that. I forgot who it was. Somebody said that.
Didn't we say Baker was like a supremely accurate quarterback coming into the league? Isn't that what we liked about him?
Yeah. Everybody thought that was like the biggest thing on him, is that he threw an accurate ball, even though he was short.
He's 27th this league in completion percentage at 62.4, just 1.3 percentage points above Jalen Hurts, who we thought around the same time could not throw a football and should play running back. So if your calling card is accuracy and you're down here in the dumps with Justin Fields, a rookie who has Matt Nagy. Hey, Matt, we haven't seen in a while. Calling plays for him. Trevor Lawrence, who played for Herb, and it's honestly been underwhelming so far. Sam Darnold, and your draft mate, who, you should probably Baker, Sam, and Josh Rosen should start a podcast.
Baker, Sam, and Josh Rosen.
Because those were the three quarterbacks. Those were the three can't-miss quarterbacks of that class. And now they're about to be the three busts from that class. And then you got the two quarterbacks that, well, they're raw, but we don't know if they can play the NFL game. One's the MVP. One's about to win his division again.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And, especially, because that was the thing, even on Josh Allen. Everybody was kind of like, I mean, his college numbers didn't, it did scream like, damn, he's going to be a bust, isn't he? Like, can't even complete 50% of his passes. And I get it. He played at Wyoming. But at the same time, even if his receivers weren't great, his O-line wasn't great, if he's putting the ball there, they got to catch it at the end of the day. I mean, those guys are going to school for free for a reason, right?
Hey, Pierce, we probably could have played at Wyoming.
Maybe. They just beat up on somebody in a bowl game.
It happens. One more. Let's get to another AFC quarterback. Actually, we're gonna pivot a little bit. We're gonna talk about another quarterback that's cooked. Is Cam cooked, man?
Oh, he's done. And did you see his comments in his interview after the last game?
Yeah, man. That's what kind of brought it up for me. I mean, he hasn't looked good, but I didn't expect.
I think he's ready to retire. I think he's ready to call it a day.
I didn't expect Cam to look great this year. He was. Just think about his last two seasons, Pierce. He shows up late for camp and he gets the starting job with one of the most complex offenses in the NFL. Then this year, let's just parlay that into showing up for the back end of the season. Yeah, it's a great PR move. Yeah, it sells tickets. Yeah, it sells jerseys. But that's a brand new offense that he's never run. And they were like, you're going to start your second game on the roster. You've been with this franchise for less than 10 days. Go start. What do you expect for somebody who's already struggling physically, and now they're thinking and not playing because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing, with the offense? I don't expect Cam to be great.
I thought it was a good move when they brought him in, honestly, because I thought just from what I had seen in preseason with the Patriots, I was like, okay, I was like, Cam looks all right. Like, and even last year before he got COVID, he looked pretty solid. I thought with New England. I remember specifically the Seattle game. I think it was a Monday or a Sunday. I think it was Sunday night. Sunday night game they played at Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
He played a fucking hell of a game. Like,
he threw that deep ball to Jules. Like,
and then Belichick or McDaniels called such a bad fourth down call on like the 3-yard line. I don't know why they wouldn't either. They like ran it with Cam, and it's like everybody knows you're running with Cam. Same thing. I didn't understand why Seattle did that in the Super Bowl against New England. Why you would just these obvious plays. Why don't you run like a bootleg? And then if he has somebody, he throws it. If not, then he just takes off. I mean, that to me just sounds like the easiest play call because either somebody's going to be open or he's going to be smart enough to just take off and run. But
now we're going to run the 6'5", 250-pound quarterback again.
And when we know that that's probably what you're going to run anyways, like we know you're going to do a quarterback draw. And so it just, I don't know, we play call, but no, I think Cam's done. I think that he pretty much declared it because at this point he knows he won't get a job next year anyways. So he would rather go out on his own terms as opposed to having the embarrassment of not being picked up. He already had not been picked up all this year. And granted, that first game he came back, he did what he did. And then that next game, statistically, he had a good game, but they lost. I think they played the Dolphins or whatever. And so I think that he pretty much, nailed his tombstone for the game of football with the comments that he had made.
So what do you say to the Atlanta fans who are going to be screaming, bring Cam home once the season's over because our fan base hates Matt Ryan?
I say to them, look, continue to do it. It's not going to happen. But then secondly, Cam Newton, I get it. He's in an Atlanta fixture. He's got his stuff over there in Castleberry. He's got his like cigar lounge and restaurant or whatever.
I don't. You live right. How can we have it?
At the end of the day, they might as well scream to get Michael Vick out of retirement too. I mean,
some of them will.
I know they will, and that's why they're Atlanta fans because there's no logic in being an Atlanta fan. Hell, most people are like, you don't have any logic for being an Atlanta fan, right? Like, it's like, well, why are you, or just a fan of Georgia teams in general? Why are you a fan of them? So some people might not think that I have any logic because I am an Atlanta fan, but certainly those fans that are Atlanta fans, half of the fan base doesn't even have logic on games. If you sit up and you talk to somebody about football that's in that stadium, 9 times out of 10, they're probably not a season ticket holder. Because you wouldn't be giving your money to something that you don't know about. I would hope that somebody is paying attention to what it is that they're paying for.
You know what? Hey, real quick before you go on that, that's so funny because I've talked to some people and they're like, why would you spend your money on Falcons season tickets? They're not good. I go, because I'm a fan and I like football. And you don't just go to watch the Falcons play. Guess what?
When they win.
Like, you go because you enjoy, for one, live sports. But I got to watch the GOAT dice us up and see Gronk score 2 touchdowns and Gronk spike. Those are 2 of the best players to ever play the game. You don't get that without investing into being a season ticket holder. You know what I mean? Oh, yeah, sure, you can buy a ticket for the game, but I don't think we'd have the perspective of the Eagles that we have today if we didn't go to that game where we watched them run the ball down our throat. Then for the next 5 weeks, have a totally different offense. I'm like, hey, man, what are you doing? You just kicked the Falcons' ass running the hell out of the ball.
That, and then, like I know from my perspective at least, it's kind of a tradition for me. I mean, I've been a fan my entire life. I grew up on it. Whether I wanted to be a fan or not from the get-go, it wasn't really up to me, to be totally honest with you. I mean, especially going to the Georgia Dome before we had Mercedes-Benz Stadium.
Well, I tell people, weren't you days old when you went to your first Falcons game?
2 weeks old. 2 weeks old. I went because I'm born in August, so 2 weeks old went to my first Falcons game.
No immune system.
And that goes to show kind of just how strong it was in my family, but more so, and what a lot of people don't realize is my entire family is not Falcons fans. Even though we have tickets, It was my mom. My mom was the real Falcons fan, and
Justice isn't really a Falcons fan.
I would say that he isn't. I would say that he is, but like he isn't. He's not really. He's not put it this way. He's not a diehard.
No, he's a typical Atlanta. He's like a typical Atlanta Falcons fan. I say Atlanta, not Atlanta Falcons, but Atlanta, Falcons fan, because he kind of rides the ups and downs and has like the outrageous like takes on shit that the Falcons should do that don't make sense to people who are watching football from like a national perspective.
Right. And I mean, he's seen it up close in person too, but I would say that somebody like him, he would be that typical type of Atlanta fan, especially when the going is good. Everybody's a Falcons fan. Like everybody has nothing but positive shit to say about the franchise, how it's being ran. Even the year we went to the Super Bowl, every week Matt Ryan would shut people the fuck up that would talk shit about him. And then comes the Super Bowl, now all of a sudden it's his fault. Once the game is over, it's like, man, it was his fault. Like I just remember that just specifically after the Super Bowl, which is funny because Brady's episode, the Man in the Stadium or whatever he's doing on ESPN, I think the episode that they're doing that just got released is the one that's on that Super Bowl that year. And I haven't watched any of them, but I'll probably check that one out because I'm just kind of curious as to how he felt about it while it was going on.
Because here's the thing that the people didn't understand about that Super Bowl, and we're not going down that rabbit hole too deep. Yeah. The defense could not get off the field. Our offense sat on the sideline for fucking ever. And guess what happens? You get cold. You lose your rhythm. You lose your momentum. Kyle's losing his momentum calling plays because he's not calling plays. He's just sitting there watching. And that, not to say that Matt Ryan played a perfect game because he didn't, but
he had an 80% completion percentage.
So much stuff happened during that game that I'm not going to point at the MVP of the league who carried us through Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers to get to the Super Bowl. And we
in blowout fashion. He blew those teams out.
And we come up this short to the fucking GOAT. So, sorry, guys. Sorry. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and then just one more thing on it, too. A fun fact that people don't realize, we blew a lead very similar that year to the Chargers. We were up 27-3 at halftime against them, and we lost that game 33-30 in overtime. So, like, it had actually had that shit. I had already seen that movie that year alone. I had already seen it, and that game was at home. We blew that game at home. So I had already seen that before. And
so hold on, we're gonna stay in Super Bowl mode, okay? I'm gonna cut you off because we're already over an hour, which I don't care, but apparently the viewers do. Real quick, I do these pods with you like for the conversation, and I want people to listen, but most of the time I could care less because it's just good fucking content.
Yeah.
It feels like do you remember, are you a Russillo fan?
I'm fine with him. Yeah, he's
Did you listen when he would have Chris Long on his podcast?
I heard a couple. I haven't heard them all.
So they used to do it every Monday, and it was just great football talk. And sometimes, especially with Chris Long, he goes down these weird, you had to be a pro to get this or a weird fan to like this, what I'm saying, rabbit hole, where he'll talk about how, most position coaches in the NFL suck. They only get jobs because they were a coordinator. They were a coordinator for somebody, and now that somebody is a coordinator. And so anyways, it gives me those vibes of just two people talking football and just actually enjoying it. But can the Colts overcome Carson? Because if you look at their team, they got the biggest turnover differential in the league. Defense is humming. Offense is humming. Ground and pound it, right? Ground and pound, baby. And they got Carson Wentz, who has a reputation that he's honestly not living up to this year in a good way. But we still see Carson in his last year's light, the year before light. But that's not who Carson Wentz has been. I think he's only thrown 6 interceptions this year. I'll fact check that while you're talking. But do you think that the Colts can overcome Carson and make a deep playoff run?
Now, Are we speaking on once he's back from COVID, or because obviously if they lose this week, I mean, I hate to say it in a weird way, the playoffs are a little bit in doubt.
Yeah, it's just once he comes back from COVID.
So,
yeah, 6 picks this year.
I'll start this
25
off.
touchdowns to 6 picks.
I'll start this off by saying this. The two most underrated positions in football are the backup quarterback and the kicker. I don't think that there's enough emphasis put on both of those positions. A, because you know that if your starter goes out, I mean, you could be in deep shit. Like we've seen so many teams be in such a bad position because they don't have a backup quarterback, a capable backup quarterback. Not a guy that's going to win you the game, but a guy that just won't lose it for you. And the Colts, to me, fucked up a little bit by not bringing Brissett back. I don't know why they would let him go to Miami. It's not like Brissett was signing a starting job somewhere, so they could have afforded him. But instead, they went with Sam Ellinger and what's my man out of Georgia? Well,
Jacob Eason.
And Eason's not even there anymore. And so he went with those two guys over a proven commodity for a dude that started for y'all. You know, the post Andrew Luck era, who wasn't bad. I mean, he was going like 8-8. You know, wasn't bad. And now you're having to beg Phillip Rivers to potentially come out of retirement to play a football game. And so I know that if they contacted him, if he didn't get signed today, he's probably not playing. So
you want to hear Jacoby's contract?
What is it? Is it 2 years, 14?
No, 1 year, $5 million, 2.5 base salary, and a $2.5 million signing bonus.
And I would have easily brought him back for that. I mean, I'd love for him to be Matt Ryan's backup at that. Like, hell, they were paying Matt Schaub some good money to back up Matt Ryan. And yeah, you know, that, and then like I said, being the kicker. Like I think having a good kicker is like a big fucking deal in the NFL. Like you do need a good kicker. But yeah, I think that they can overcome it. It's just going to depend on really who they play. Like the AFC is so balanced to the point of where, to me, that whole first round week, we could see multiple road teams win. Unlike in the NFC where we're like, well, the 49ers seem to be the only team that'll be able to pull it off. In the AFC, all three road teams could win because that's just how balanced it is from top to bottom. New England could go on the road and beat somebody. The Colts are set up to be able to go on the road and beat somebody. Who else? Who's that last team? Hold on, let me pull it back up. As hot as the Dolphins have been,
they play defense, man.
You know, but even though I believe the Chargers will be that team in that slot. So, but a team like the Chargers, they'll be able to score enough points to where shit, if you can't keep up, I mean, that game could get out of hand early, and it could get ugly. And I guess the thing will be almost it's going to be matchups from that perspective, because even a team like the Chargers, if they play on a cold weather game, let's say that the Chargers somehow went to Buffalo or something. Mm-hmm. I don't see them, even though because the Bills can keep up with them offensively, right? If they played them, if that just so happened to be the matchup, they can keep up with them offensively. But at the same time, I also don't see the Chargers just moving the ball in that cold weather. And so I think it'll depend on the matchup. But as of now, they have the Colts slotted against the Bills. They already beat them in Buffalo, and so I think they can overcome Carson. And I think that Carson, even though he hasn't truly played a playoff game himself, if we're keeping it 100. Yeah. Well, what's that? Who did they play that year?
Jadeveon Clowney's team. So that must have been the Russell Wilsons.
Yep. Seahawks. Yeah. And they won that game. He got hurt. No, they lost that game.
Oh, yeah. They definitely lost.
That was the year after. That was the year after the Super Bowl. Yeah, they lost that game. Because Carson was hurt going into the Super Bowl run. He didn't even play in any of them. Because their first playoff game was against us that year. So, you know, I like the Colts just in general. I just think that they got a really good team. I think Frank Reich's a pretty good coach. And so I think that as long as he doesn't play bad, that they'll be able to overcome him. Him not being necessarily the reason they win football games.
All right, man. We're gonna not talk about COVID, but let's do a quick college football. Do you want to get into college football playoff predictions, or do you have a 6-pack for the New Year's Six?
Let's just do because we don't know if a game is going to be canceled. Let's just do the predictions on it.
All right, so let me pull up your New Year's Six Bowl. I got college football playoff, but I really want to talk New Year's Six Bowls. Okay,
Now I can put one together now, but the way that this thing has been going,
right. I don't want to put the six pack name on it because the COVID situation has been so. Oh shit! The Peach Bowl's tomorrow. Are you going?
no, we didn't get tickets. I mean, because Michigan State, Kenneth Walker's out, who's their best player. He's not playing because he's going to draft, and then Kenny Pickett's not playing for the Pittsburgh. So,
Uh, Pro Football
wait,
Focus.
or is that who? Wait, no, it's Michigan State and who?
Michigan. Yeah, you're right. Michigan State and Pitt.
Pittsburgh. Yeah. Neither of them are playing, so that's like a pointless game.
Yeah, I saw a what's it called? I saw a Pro Football Focus has us drafting Kenny Pickett at 10.
Wasted a pick. I'm not a big believer in a guy like that.
Um,
He wasn't
everybody,
on anyone's draft board before the season. I know that Joe Burrow is like a fine example of that too, and Mac Jones. Like these were guys that were not projected to be first round picks, and now they're in the league and like they're doing all this. Like the year before,
look at their seasons though.
right? Exactly. And I know that Pickett had a big season, but Matt Ryan's going to be the quarterback next year unless they somehow trade him, or they could release him. But with that cap hit, I just don't see it. And so I would focus on either
Defense.
Yeah, I mean, I would just be
O-line.
trying to make this team as competitive as possible and setting up the pieces for the next quarterback, unless, they do believe Matt can be a pretty
I'll be pissed if we extend Matt one more time. Now, I think we should build up our roster to get prepared to have a rookie or even bring in a bridge the year after Matt if we don't get the rookie that we like.
like bring in Drew Lock or something.
Yeah, or hell, I talk shit about Baker, but if we get Baker for 18 mil for a year, I'm not losing sleep at the right price.
Right, I'm willing to roll with something like that, just because it's like I said, even about him earlier, it could be one of those things where he just wasn't in the right system. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It could be anything. Some guys just need to change the scenery, and maybe he just hates living in Cleveland. Like I don't know, but I would too. Shit, I would too. But
so do we care about the Peach Bowl? We got a prediction on that, or we're just gonna go to the next one?
Here, hold on. Let me pull it up. I'm gonna pull it up because I'm gonna tell you the games we'll go through. We might as well do it. No, because with all the players and stuff out, those games are so much harder to call, and I just can't give an accurate prediction.
So I got Fiesta Bowl.
We can because I got the odds pulled up, so we can start with that. Damn it! Even though this keeps fucking up, hold on.
Notre Dame, Oklahoma State. Bro, how weird is it to see Oklahoma State in a bowl that matters and Oklahoma's playing some shit that we don't care about?
This year it isn't as bad just because of how bad Oklahoma was.
No, I'm just saying optically, just like on the surface, not actually like provided. Like,
yeah. It's definitely weird because it's just like, how does a Mike Gundy team figure out a way to be playing on the New Year's Day bowl slate, but then Oklahoma's playing tonight?
Even with Pitt playing in the New Year's Six, and no Clemson, no Florida State, no Miami.
Clemson's playing right now.
Who cares?
I know, right? Well, the bettors care.
I mean, yeah. Dabo's on his way to being Coach O, if you ask me. Keep talking, Dabo. You're going to be Coach O.
Hold on now. Let's not call him Coach O. I mean, he's got 3 national championship appearances and 2 times.
I'm just saying, as far as alienating himself from players by having his ultra-conservative views out there.
Don't you think it's a little weird that they've got these playoff games on New Year's Eve?
Yeah, it's messing up my New Year's Eve because how do you dress? Like, I want to go watch the Georgia game, but I'm not going to the Battery in a blazer to watch the Georgia-Michigan game.
And that game's going to end at about an hour and 30 minutes before the
So
start
I'm
of the new
so
year.
I'm gonna be in the Battery for New Year's. Like I'm bringing in my New Year's at the Battery because I'm gonna go to the watch party, and then it's like we better ride this wave while we're here.
Right.
But who wants to bring in their New Year's in sweats and not in sweats and jeans and a hoodie? I don't do urban wear.
Right.
Like
Well, you could hardball it up and put some khakis on.
I think I am gonna hardball it up, put some khakis on, and I'm gonna wear some black and red, but not specifically Georgia colors, so that it can blend for the night move. I'm just not gonna have a
full on. Oh man, this guy's clearly like if you wore like a red blazer or something. That would be like he's very obviously.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go.
Out.
I think I'm gonna wear my black and red 13s, so I got my black and I got something going. We'll figure it out.
Here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Give me
6.
what you got for a pork chop, as Chingy said.
Here, we'll go in order on it. So Cincinnati at Alabama. Eye test wise, I think we all really know exactly what direction this game's going to go in, and I don't see why Alabama doesn't cover the minus 13.5 against Cincinnati. We could be surprised a little bit because Cincinnati has got such this chip on its shoulder. They felt disrespected last year. This year, they got enough respect because everybody cannibalized themselves enough for them to get in as an undefeated team. But Cincinnati just hasn't been convincing enough this year. And at the end of the day, Nick Saban's going to always have his guys ready. And we saw that against Georgia in the SEC championship game. So I'll go ahead and take Alabama minus 13.5.
Baker has a chip on his shoulder, by the way. So chips don't mean shit to me. That's
true. That is true. Baker, the chips that he has on his shoulder, he throws them to the defenders. But nonetheless, we'll take Alabama by 2 touchdowns.
Look, Baker's the guy in Vegas who gets so hammered, and he just go, "Hey man, take this chip, man. Go make a bet. Make a bet."
Right. Well, what it is he's the whipping boy of the NFL at this point. He's kind of like how people talk about people that work at McDonald's. Like that's like whenever somebody's like flipping burgers, they're like you're gonna be flipping burgers or something. It's like at McDonald's, it's like McDonald's is like the whipping boy of a job for society for whatever reason, as if we don't need people working at McDonald's or something. But so yeah, we'll go ahead and take Alabama minus 13.5. Next game, we got Georgia, Michigan. I have been teetering about the spread on this game. Honestly, it opened up at 8. It's at 7.5 now. A part of me wants to say that Georgia should beat them and cover this spread, but I'm just going to take the easy way out. I think Georgia's going to win the game. I don't know if they're going to cover the spread though, honestly, because
I don't either.
Especially with Kirby coming out and saying that Stetson's going to be the starter, and it wasn't even thought about.
Media.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think this game will be a little bit closer than people might think it will because it's not as Georgia pretty much beats them in every position group except maybe pass rush because we know that Michigan's got 2 dogs on the ends. But outside of that, and they've got a pretty good running back too. But Georgia by committee should be able to match him, is what I'm saying. Like
you say pass rush, but would you give Georgia the edge in front 4?
In totality, yeah, for sure. Jordan Davis, yeah. I think all in all, front 4, yeah. All in all, I would give a slight edge to Georgia, but I think that they definitely have a better pass rush.
I will argue that. I'm not a Georgia homer or anything, not at all.
Yeah, but I would say that. So we'll take Georgia on the money line here, just because that spread. I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia covers the spread, but I'm just going to go ahead and take the safe bet. I think that they're going to win the game. And so next game, we got the Citrus Bowl. We got Kentucky and Iowa. This one's actually a relatively easy one. I think that Kentucky was vastly underrated this season. I think they were a lot better than people think that they are. Stoops' brother, not Bob. What's his damn name? Mark Stoops. He's been there, and he's kind of been having that thing cooking to where they've been, they're never going to be Georgia or Florida. But they sure as fuck can be ranked and get in spots like this when they play against an Iowa team that they're better than because they play the better talent all throughout the season. And for what it's worth, Kentucky, I'm sure that Kentucky gets probably about the same amount of talent that Iowa gets. Iowa's tight end U, by the way. They got another really good tight end there. They had Kittle and Hawkinson, obviously, who are both phenomenal in the league. But I like Kentucky in this spot. The SEC hasn't won a bowl game all year. They're 0-4 after Mississippi State lost last night. And let me see, is Georgia the first?
These bowl records. These bowl records don't mean shit when it's the bowls that nobody cares about. Like, let's talk about the bowls that the top 15 teams are playing in, and then let's talk about who's playing. Don't talk to me about the Meineke Car Care Bowl. I'll never get a Meineke sponsorship because I keep shitting on that bowl. But don't tell me about that bowl because, hey, man, we don't care. You better talk to me about
Meineke. No, I was going to say, when I think of Meineke, I think of George Foreman.
Same.
You remember he used to do those commercials? It's like you see this bald-headed George Foreman. I'm like, where's the grill, asshole? You know? I do. When you look at George Foreman, you just think of like him holding.
Yeah, you think of the grill. I don't even think of the boxer because of my age. I think of the grill.
Yeah. And so
I'm gonna knock out these steaks.
Or what's he had his daughter that boxed too, Frida Foreman, and then there was Layla Ali. Like both of them had daughters that just so happened to box.
Yeah.
And I think, didn't Layla Ali die?
I don't think so.
One of his daughters died, like before he did.
I think Layla Ali is. Let's see. Yeah, she's an American TV personality apparently.
Somebody died. One of their daughters died, but
she's still kicking.
It might have been Foreman's daughter.
Well,
nonetheless,
let's get back to these picks.
Right, give me Kentucky on the money line against Iowa. I think Iowa, as good as they've been defensively, pretty much all season. The juice really ran out with that team, and they weren't as good as they were. Never really the number 2 team in the country. But Kentucky, to me, they've got the talent. They're actually a really solid team this year. I just like the strength of schedule a little bit more. So give me Kentucky against Iowa. Next game, we got the Fiesta Bowl. We got Oklahoma State and Notre Dame. This one, honestly, it might be one of the easier games to bet on. As much as I would like to take Notre Dame money line, I like the under at 45. I actually don't see very many points getting scored in this game. Notre Dame can kind of run it up, and I know that 45 is kind of a low number, but a lot of people have to almost look at it this way. Oklahoma State probably have the second best defense in the Power Fives behind Georgia all year. They played a really solid schedule, obviously beating Oklahoma. And Notre Dame's not one of those teams that just lights up the scoreboard, not when it comes to them playing against a solid team like Oklahoma State, who is exactly what they are. They're solid. And I know that most bowl games typically go over because, well, it's a bowl game, right? It's about the entertainment factor. I wouldn't be surprised at all if this game went under. So I'm going to go ahead and roll with the under at 45.
Okay.
Next game, we got the Rose Bowl. We got Utah versus Ohio State. Go ahead and let me slap 5 on Ohio State. Give me that -4.5. I'm going to take them on the spread because Utah has been a solid team all year. And we got to see them fucking backstroke Oregon 2 times. Like in the last two out of the last 3 games they played Oregon, and they just fucking mollywopped them. Absolutely. Ohio State's a little bit different of a beast, even though Ohio State lost to Oregon. I get that. Ohio State's a solid team. They're just really young, and they kind of had overachieved anyways. I expect them to kind of handle work against Utah. I just do.
So we got Ohio State -4.5.
Yep, Ohio State -4.5. And then for the final game, we got Baylor and Ole Miss. This one's going to be pretty entertaining. It's the Sugar Bowl. It's at Caesar Superdome, New Orleans. I know you're not going to be out there, but if it's anything like what the Marshall boys were doing, I expect there to be a lot of drinking. And so if there's a lot of drinking, that means there's going to be a lot of points. So I like the over in this game at 55.5. Obviously, Ole Miss can put the points up on the board, and Baylor's going to have to do that in order to keep up. I like Ole Miss too, money line, honestly, but either way, Baylor, they had a pretty solid defense themselves this year. But at the same time, I totally expected this game to go over because Ole Miss is going to get at least 30 themselves. So I like over 55.5 in that game.
New Year's in New Orleans. All right, so we got Cincy versus Alabama. We're going to take Alabama minus 13.5. They're going to win by 2 touchdowns because Cincy doesn't belong on the same field. Sorry, Luke.
Yeah.
UGA on the money line because we're starting Stetson. We got Kentucky on the money line. We got the OK State and Notre Dame game under 45. We're going to take Ohio State minus 4.5. And then in the Baylor versus Ole Miss, we're going to go over 55.5 because there's going to be no defense because those DBs are going to be drunk.
Precisely.
All right, man. I appreciate that. That is our last college football 6-pack of the year. We may come back with some funny
national
bets.
Championship prediction.
National championship, maybe some props and stuff like that. We may get creative, but like your legitimate college 6-pack. Yeah, that's your last one. Let's get to the big guys. NFL 6-pack.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6, 7, 8
exactly.
bets in your bet account.
Exactly. And so we got a really good 6-pack here too. So we're gonna kick this thing off the right way with the semi-lock of the week. Go ahead and slap 5 on the Seahawks on that money line. They got the Detroit Lions at the Seahawks. I believe that this is going to be the last home game in Seattle this year. So potentially the last home game for Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson together, because anyone that thinks that they're going to run this team back is foolish. I expect this to, and if you could fact check that for me, Lee, on whether or not they play a home game the following week. But I do think that this is going to be probably the last home game of the year for them. And so we'll go ahead and say that they go out with a bang and they actually get a W against a lowly Lions team, even with Jared Goff back. I think that they should be able to win this game on the money line. So go ahead and feed me the Seahawks money line.
That's their last home game.
Yep. So, go out with a bang. Next game. We talked about this a little bit earlier. This is one of the hottest games of the week, especially with Lamar playing, considering that he's practicing. We got the Rams at the Ravens. I'm going to go out on a whim, man. I'm going to take the Ravens plus 3.5. And here's why. This is do or die for them. So if they don't win this game, season's over. Bengals clinch the division. You have no chance of making the playoffs. You're playing against a Rams team that's traveling across the country. I expect it to be a pretty close game, especially if Lamar is, in fact, going to play and he's healthy, which I have to imagine because they kept saying every other week that, he might play. It was always a game-time decision. I think they were waiting on him to get fully healthy. So he's got to be fully healthy at this point, especially if he's practicing. I like him at plus 3.5. Give me the points. I like the Ravens at plus 3.5. If they lose the game, I do expect it to be kind of come down to the last minute, and the Ravens are very familiar with that. They've had more than a few games that have happened that way. I can name 4 off the top of my head. We just saw 2 with the Steelers and the Packers where it came down to the final play, basically. We saw it with the Detroit Lions when Tucker made the field goal, NFL record, and then we saw it at the beginning of the season when they played the Raiders on Monday night. So and same thing with the Chiefs and Ravens. They're familiar with close games, so it's easy to take them on points at home against a team that's coming across country, even with a guy like Matt Stafford at quarterback.
What's that kickoff
at? 1 o'clock.
Is it 1 o'clock kickoff? Oh, hell yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. So give me that plus 3.5. I think that they're giving way too many points on that, especially for you to not have to buy any. Give me the plus 3.5. Next game, we got the Broncos at the Chargers. Give me the Chargers money line. We're just going to keep it real simple here. No reason to take them at that minus 6. It's pretty much a do or die for them too. The Broncos are dead in the water. They're not going to playoffs. The game's in LA. I expect them to come out and have a better showing than they did this past week, considering they dropped the egg against the Texans team that they really should have beat. And they were almost 2 touchdown favorites, and they damn near lost by 2 touchdowns. I like for Herbert to get back on track, and then they'll have Eckler back, who should be back from the COVID protocols. They should get this done relatively easy, but it is a division game, so that's why we're just going to take the money line. Next game, we got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Cincinnati Bengals. An exciting game, honestly. I expect this game to be exciting, but you know why it's going to be exciting? Because there's going to be a lot of points scored. Give me the over 50.5. I just don't see how the Bengals get shut out at home. where they're not scoring, especially against a Chiefs secondary that has shown that they are flawed as shit. And then obviously the Bengals have dropped, they've laid an egg at home twice. In back-to-back weeks, they lost to the 49ers and who did they lose to that week before? And the Chargers, where the Chargers had dropped points on them. Now, that wasn't the last 2 weeks, but that was like 2 out of the last 3 weeks. But those were back-to-back home games for the Bengals that they dropped, but it was a ton of points scored. I expect Patrick Mahomes to definitely be in the groove, and he'll have all of his weapons because he didn't have Kelsey, I don't believe, in the last game either.
I like 28-24.
And that gets you over 50.5. So we're going to take that over. Next game, Tampa Bay Bucks at the New York Jets. Give me Brady to go back to New York and do what he always does when he's there. Give me Brady and the Bucks minus 13. Even without the weapons, I just expect him to pretty much exploit that. The bad defense and bad team and bad fan base. Even probably what's going to be chilly-ass weather, too. Give me Brady and the boys minus 13. I'm going to lay the points. I don't see how he doesn't get it done. That's really
might break for 50 again.
Well, that too, and then you got Zach that's going to be throwing the other team the ball, and so
and it's the Jets. It's like, you know what I mean. That's like, when you're in college and you come home and there's that one person you can always come home to. Those first few years out after high school, like, hey, I'm in town. That's the Jets to Brady. He knows when he goes to the Jets, when he plays against the Jets,
he get that ass.
He can always fuck them.
He can always get that ass, and there's nothing that they can do about it because they're going to come back to him. They're always going to come back to him. As much as they might hate him, they're going to love it. And so
we're Barstool material, huh?
Yeah, we're creeping into that. That's for sure. It's definitely not FS1,
No.
But and then for the final game of the 6-pack, just lost it. Where is it? All right, there we go. And then for the final game of the 6-pack, we got the Houston Texans at the San Francisco 49ers. I got to go to the 49ers game when the Falcons played them. I don't think that the Texans are better than the Falcons. But Houston is coming off arguably their most impressive win of the year by beating a team that I consider a playoff team in the Chargers. They were at home, though, and they also didn't play against a defense that was nearly as good as San Francisco's. They're going to have to travel to the west, to the Bay Area.
Bay Area?
Yeah, Bay Area. They're going to have to travel there, and they're laying 12.5 on this game. So we're going to go ahead and take that 12.5. I expect the 49ers to get a relatively comfortable win and for the Texans to come back down to earth with Davis Mills probably throwing a couple picks, maybe 3 or 4. Who knows?
So we got Seahawks money line. We got the Ravens plus 3.5. Chargers money line. KC and Cincy over 50.5. Tampa Bay minus 13. And the 49ers minus 12.5. You really stuck your dick out there, man.
I did. And you notice what I didn't do? I didn't touch the Falcons game this week.
I wouldn't touch that game either because
they got it at 14.5.
I'd probably go plus 14.5.
You would think that, right? And you know what the thing is with those Falcons games? They pretty much, outside of the games that they really have gotten blown out by good teams, which I guess the Bills are considered that, a good team, every other game is a one-possession game that they play in. And so whether they win or lose, they're typically one-possession games.
Well, they didn't cover last week because Dan Campbell did that on purpose. Dan Campbell knew the line, and he was like, you know what?
Yeah, that was such bullshit. It was such bullshit because I think I was sitting there. I don't know if I had called you either. Oh, no, you were down there.
No, we were right there. We were right next to each other when it happened.
Yeah, and I literally said, oh, no. I said, why is he kicking a field goal? I was like, it's 3 minutes left in the game. Like, what you need if you kick a field goal, you still need a touchdown. So why are you kicking a field goal? Why wouldn't you just go for it? And you still got your 3 timeouts. Like, why are you going for it? And then Russell Gage fumbles, and then it wasn't David Blow. It was
Tim Boyle,
Matt Boyle or something.
Yeah, whoever it was.
Yeah. He threw the ball to Foye, and they took it back to the house.
Yeah, but Boyle blows. They're bad.
I got a relatively. I tell you what, I'll give it, and this isn't a bonus pick or nothing, but just in general, if the Falcons cover the spread, I bet they win the game. Make that my first take. How about that?
Okay, that's your first take. If the Falcons cover, they win.
If they cover the spread, they'll win the game.
All right, man. I like that. It's been a great pod. You know, I've enjoyed you. Damn, when will I see you again? Falcons. Well, we'll talk next week, obviously, on here. But Falcons Saints.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be in town pretty much all of next week. I got to come down here for like a day or two, and then I'll be back up there for about a week and a half or so.
Okay. Yeah, as long as my COVID test, like I said, I'm scheduled to get one done tomorrow. I'll be up in Buffalo on New Year's Day. Supposed to be going to DC. We'll see, but if not, I might be down to do the Battery or something. It just depends. It's really gonna depend.
All right, man. Just let me know. Happy New Year's to everybody, and yeah, I think we're done here.
Yeah, Happy New Year's, guys.
All right, man.
All right.